Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Mr. Shank, coming to you live from Summit Academy. In this video, working through that unit number 5 competency test, and we're doing a little practice for it. So it says this. In number 1, it says study the function. It has g of x is equal to 5 times quantity, x plus 7 squared minus 10. So first part, find the inverse, and then part B, under what domain is the inverse a function? Explain your thinking. So make sure you're always remembering when you're restricting that domain, you have to restrict the domain of that original function. So we're talking about that original function. So first step, step 1, I'm going to take and switch my x and y values around. So normally it looks like this. I have y equals, again, anytime you have f of x or g of x or whatever, it's just talking about y. So I'm going to switch these around. So I'm going to rewrite my equation like this. I have x equals, and I have 5 times y plus 7 and squared minus 10. So step 1, switch those two around. Step 2, use those inverse operations to solve for y. So now we're trying to get this y equals again, and once we have our function, it's going to have the inverse. So let's do it like this. I'm going to use my inverse operations. So let's switch colors if it'll let me. There it is. Okay. So first step, I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So I add 10 to both sides, and then I have x plus 10 equals the rest of the equation, 5 times y plus 7, all squared. And so now I can divide both sides by 5. Divide both sides by 5. Again, make sure you just take it one step at a time, and it's kind of looks something like this. So let's say I have x plus 10 all over 5, and equals, now we have the quantity x plus 7 squared. So now when you're looking at your exponent, you're thinking, okay, I have to get rid of that exponent, and so I have to take the square root of both sides. Again, make sure whatever that root is, it has to be the inverse. So if it's, cubed or whatever it is, you have to make sure that you're taking that of both sides. And this is how it creates, those two answers that we've been talking about in class. It creates that plus or minus when you're working with this function, because you have those two different answers. So it's going to look something like this. You have, let's say, let's write it on the left side. I have y plus 7, so I went on this side, equals, and I have plus or minus the square root of x plus 10 over 5. Again, be careful, make sure that square root is including all that. And so again, this is giving us those two different answers. Last step, subtract 5 from both sides, or sorry, subtract 7 from both sides. Subtract 7 from both sides. Let's not write across the entire thing. There we go. So let's do minus 7 to both sides. Make sure it is separate from your radical symbol. So your function should be this. I should have y equals, which is the same as your inverse. So you're saying that's going to be g to the negative 1 of x. That's just saying inverse. And then we're going to say our function is negative 7 plus or minus the square root of x plus 10 all over 5. Okay. Now that we have our inverse, we need to restrict that domain. And if we look at this option, again, this is that part A. If we're looking at that part B now, we have to restrict the original function. We can't really restrict the domain of this function because it's already, if we were to kind of look at the graph, it would kind of look, something like that. That's not going to be a function because it doesn't pass that vertical line test. However, if we restrict the original function, meaning instead of having a parabola like this, we're going to have just one of those sides. So you can have the positive side, or you can have that negative side. So you have to pick one of those two. So your option is going to be like this. Let me make sure I'm writing this right. So we're going to say, let's say, so restrict the domain. And we're going to look at this initial value. So we have that -7. So we're going to say restrict the domain of, let's say, of, let's do like this, f, or no, sorry, it's not f, it's g of x, restrict the domain of, I don't know why it keeps doing that. I need to make sure I'm careful. So g of x, and then like this. Restrict the domain of g of x, so it is to be, let's say, x is going to be greater than or equal to -7, or you can say x is going to be less than or equal to 7. So as long as you pick one of those two, again, depending on which one you choose, if you're saying, well, I need my function to have that right side, I would have the plus, or if I want the left side, I would have the negative symbol. So make sure you're choosing one of those two. For that next part, in number 2, it says study the graph. So you have that parabola shape. That means that we have a quadratic function. In part A, it says on the graph, sketch the inverse of f of x and label it f -1 of x. And then part B, it says describe the relationship between the function f of x and its inverse f to the -1 of x. And so when we have a setup like this, real simple, let's say, let me write, let's do it like this. So get table of values. And so I'm going to get my original table. So let me actually make this a little bit smaller. How's that? If it'll actually pick up. Sure. So let's get table of values. So I'm going to say on the left side I have x, on the right side I have f of x. And so I'm saying, okay, find some ordered pairs. I have x is going to be -9 and y is going to be -2. I have my next order pair, again, I'm just kind of tracing along this line. I have -8 and -8. It'd be real nice if I don't press those buttons because it's starting to get to me. Okay. There we go. Next point, our min is going to be at -7. So let's say -7 and -10. So probably going to have about 4 ordered pairs on this graph. Let me just bring this down a little bit. And if it would stop. Trying to use some technology here that's not working with me, of course. That'd be real great if it stopped doing that. Please and thank you. Okay. Next order pair, -6 and -8. Next order pair, -5 and -2. Okay, took forever, but we got there. So now that we have our table of values, all I have to do is switch the x and y's around. So my new table, so let me actually do it like this. Let's do, not that, can I drag, I lock that one, and let's drag this over. Okay, so I have my table of values, and what I'm going to do now is I have my inverse, and so I'm going to write my inverse. like this. I'm going to say I have my x values, and my new function is going to be the inverse. So I have -1 f of x. All I have to do is switch these two tables around. Again, switch the x and y column and you'll be good. So I can write one column at a time, so I'm going to do that. My x values are now my y values, so I have -9, I have -8, I have -7, -6, and -5. On my x values, I now have -2, -8, -10, -8 again, and -2. So be mindful, again, you're just switching the x and y values. Be careful when you're going back and forth. Again, in white, I have my original function. In this pink color, I have my inverse. So now when you go to sketch it, again, you just plot these ordered pairs and kind of trace the line. So I'm going to plot these ordered pairs like this. So let's do it a little bit darker. So -2, so -2, -9, plot the point. Let's not use the mouse for that. Let's do on the pen. So -2, -9, then I have -8, -8. So -8, -8. You might have repeats, that's okay. We're just looking to plot these new points. So -10, -7, far to the left. Please write with me. We have swinging back around -8 and -6. And then we have -2, -5. -2, -5. Something like this. Please write with me. There we go. Jesus. Okay. So now that I have my points, I can kind of sketch the line. It's not going to be great, but as long as you kind of trace along and go through those points, that's what we are mainly looking for. Can I do it in one attempt? Wow, not too bad. Okay. So notice also too, when it's saying in part B, describe the relationship between those two, you're saying, hey, what can I notice? Well, I can say a couple different things. I can say, let me kind of make some space for myself. I can say something like this. Let me write in green. I'm going to say X. One of these days it will work with me. Okay. So, maybe not. Maybe I'm just perpetually done for all of eternity. Nope. I'm not sure why it keeps messing up like that. Be real great. Okay, so I want to say something about the x and y values. Then I can say, so like this. Let's say, let's have x and y values are switched. Again, that we're talking about from the inverse to the normal function. We're talking about the graphs. The graphs are reflections over the y equals x line. So those are going to be the two main things that we're looking for this table of points. As long as we can have those two options, talk about the x and y tables are switched from the inverse to the normal, and the graphs are reflections over that y equals x line. Again, that's that diagonal line that goes through those points. Okay, moving on quickly. It says study the equation. We have log base 11, and we have 122 equals y. It says to rewrite the equation as an exponential equation, and it gives you some options. So I'm going to do a quick overview, or maybe even a reminder for some people. So let's do it like this. I'm going to say anytime you have your two main options, we have exponential. See why? So you guys aren't seeing, you're not seeing what I'm seeing, because it keeps clicking and not clicking at the same time. I'm going to try not to break everything. Okay, exponential, and we have on the right side, oh my lord, have patience with me here. Okay, so I think the key is to not click that top button. Okay, so let's do it like this, exponential. Then we have logarithmic. So now we're going to say if we have something like an exponential function, kind of looks like this. We have 2 to the power x equals 32, where logarithmic would be log base 2 of 32 equals x. So whatever your exponential is, you have your base, you have your base, you have your exponent, and then you have your answer. And these are inverse functions of each other. That means they switch back and forth. So that means when we have our log, we're saying log of our base, and we have whatever our answer is. It's now kind of switched around, and we're saying this is equal to our exponent. Our exponent. Okay. So make sure you're seeing and kind of switching it back and forth between those two, so that way you can rewrite it for yourself. So as I'm looking at these two options, I know, hey, A and B are going to be obviously wrong, because those two are going to be, just horizontal lines. They're not in exponential form because they don't have that variable in the exponent. So I know those two are obviously wrong, and I just have to say, okay, well, what's going to be my base? So I can actually kind of highlight. I can highlight and say, hey, my base is going to be 11, and my answer is going to be 121. So if I notice that, I can kind of say, hey, which one of these should it be? So it should have the answer 121, and it should have the base of 11. So we're going to say that choice is going to be D for that one, as we have that set up. Be careful, even though C has that exponential form with the variable and the exponent, we're saying that the base was 121 for C, so we know we can't pick that one. In number 4, same setup. We're now going from exponential to log. So we're going to say that, let's have it like this. We can say our base is 9, our exponent is y, and our answer is x. So now all we have to do is use these 3 parts and write a logarithmic function. So again, if you need to go back and kind of see how those are set up, please do, but make sure you're using these 2 ideas, because we can switch back and forth between those 2. So now I can say, all right, I have log base 9 of x is going to equal y. So this is going to be my answer for this choice, so I need to pick that right one. Again, you can, if you want to eliminate some options, let me change it to red. If you want to eliminate some options, you could eliminate B and D because those two have the variables as the base. And then you have to be careful between A and C. You just need to make sure you're saying that the answer is right next to the log. For number 5, it says study the equation, and then it says solve for x. So now again, if you need to switch back and forth, make sure you do. So I can say something like this. I can say, all right, if I need to write it as an exponential function, I certainly could. So I could have, we have x as our base, our power is 3, and so we can take this is equal to 64. And if you're ever stuck, use that wonderful graphing calculator, which I already have up. Perfect. And so make sure on your graphing calculator, if you need to take a root of something, so I need to take the third root, meaning the cubic root, I can hit math, and then if I need to have some other type of root, I can use the x root button, or I can just have third root, since that's what I'm talking about. So I'm taking the third root, or the cubic root of 64, and that's going to be 4. So on this one, so let me do, so inverse operations, take not the square root, we're taking the cubic root. So be careful with that. A lot of people a lot of mistakes where take the square root and say it's 8. However, you have to make sure, again, this is the cubic root. Since it's to the, our third power, we need to get rid of it, and so that means our answer for this one is going to be x equals 4. Okay, getting a little bit better with this pen. Hopefully I don't jinx it. Last problem. Thanks for bearing with me. It says study the equation. Already studied it. Have and set up our exponential function now. So I'm going to solve for x. I have base 7 to the power x equals 4. So you're saying, okay, what power is this going to be? So the way I can set it up is like this. I can say, all right, I can take log base 7 of both sides. So let me rewrite that. All right, exponential function 7x equals 4. Nope, that's why I was messed up. 7 to the power of 4 equals x. This is easier to do. Okay, so it says solve the equation, and now we can rewrite it like this. We're saying x is going to be our answer. So in your wonderful calculator, if you hit 7 exponent 4, then hit enter, get your answer, and you're good. So you're going to say for this one, x is going to be 2,401. Okay, so a little tricky on a couple of those parts. For the most part, not too bad. Make sure you're asking questions. Stop by office hours. And as always, super slam that subscribe button.